So let's talk about the assassination attempt that happened on July 13th, 2024 against Donald Trump. So Bobby Jr. at the time didn't have Secret Service protection. Joe Biden had denied it, even though John F. Kennedy and Robert Kennedy had both been assassinated. Bobby Kennedy was a presidential candidate, presumptive Democratic nominee after the California primary. In fact, right now, Biden and Trump are presumptive nominees. We haven't had the convention. These conventions can still be brokered. Imagine if we had a brokered convention where we actually elected. We actually had the old school conventions where a dark horse candidate could become president. Abraham Lincoln was a dark horse candidate. Both Donald Trump and Joe Biden never released the JFK files. Why not? Got to keep it a secret that the CIA and LBJ was involved. Is that the reason? So Donald Trump survived an assassination attempt because Joe Biden looked like an old man who shit his pants at the debate, and then Donald just survived this assassination attempt. It almost seems like Donald Trump has this thing in the bag. He's got it in the bag. He looks all strong and heroic, while you have old Sleepy Joe who's looking weak, and the bullet had grazed Donald Trump's ear. Donald Trump just crooked his neck just in time to not being shot in the head. He just crooked his neck. He turned his neck, and then you could see that he had winced. There are 8 shots that were shot in total, and he had missed his big shot. Thomas Crooks missed his big shot. FBI blamed Leonard Peltier first. That's just a joke. I'm just kidding. Thomas Crooks is the guy who fired the shots. Thomas Crooks had crawled up on top of some kind of barn 500 feet or so away with his AR-15. He shot 8 quiet shots. They were not loud banging shots. They were just small, tiny popcorn shots. The Secret Service was going to shoot and kill Thomas Crooks after the 8 shots were fired. Donald Trump had slightly tilted his head. That saved his life. He was complaining about immigrants, which is usual. He's all about political violence. That's what a fascist does. He's spreading his racist hatred, Southern strategy, dog whistling. He's ramping up the political violence, right? Throw the protesters out of rallies. Back in his days, they would beat the protesters up. Back in his days, they would kill Edward Snowden for being a traitor. This is the rhetoric that Donald Trump uses. Donald Trump wants Edward Snowden to be killed, basically for being a hero. Who told us the truth. Thomas Crooks had drove 40 minutes to an hour to the Trump rally. Thomas Crooks had been bullied relentlessly. Thomas Crooks was a registered Republican. Thomas Crooks used an AR-15. Now, I'm pro Second Amendment. I'm pro all of my Bill of Rights. My bushel of freedoms is both the freedoms listed in our respective state constitutions and America's, the U.S. constitutional freedoms too. You combine those two. The U.S. Constitution's got a Bill of Rights, and so does our states. But the Democrats have been pushing so hard to get rid of the assault rifles, the AR-15. A lot of liberals have pushed to get rid of it. Young Turks, for one. Assault rifles were banned during the 1990s. Even Biden had got it done under President Clinton in the 90s. So the narrative that Clandis is pushing, she really does not want it to be a right-winger. They want it to be a left-winger. I heard something about you shouldn't send Antifa to do the CIA's job. Fucking Pennsylvania, fucking Pittsburgh. Has anything ever good come from Pennsylvania? 20-year-old Thomas Crooks is a registered Republican. Now, he may or may not have donated $15 to an Act Blue account. So Clandis wants to say he donated $15 when he was 17 years old to an Act Blue account. And then, is that true? I've also heard something. I've heard a alternative narrative. Apparently, there's another Thomas Crooks in Pittsburgh. But this one's 69 years old. To me, it doesn't make any sense that a 17-year-old would make a political donation to any candidate before he's even voted, before he's even registered to vote. He's sitting there donating to Democratic candidates before he had a bank account, before he had a credit card to make a donation with. It makes no sense. Thomas Crooks is dead now. shot up by the Secret Service, but he made it into the history books first, along with Lee Harvey Oswald, John Wilkes Booth, Leon Kozgaz, and the stalwart of stalwarts, Charles J. Guiteau. Thomas Crooks's mother is a Democrat, his father a Libertarian. The precise motive isn't known. Maybe Thomas Crooks hated Donald. Maybe Thomas Crooks won an infamy. Maybe because Thomas Crooks was bullied in school. Thomas Crooks apparently was a loner. He was made fun of for how he looked, how he dressed. So great job, American public schools. Education is self-emergent and self-organizing. If there's a computer around, teachers today only stifle education. Schooling stops education from happening. Instead, American public schools are authoritarian institutions, mostly teaching blind obedience to authority. So the biggest bully is the teacher. And there's a strict hierarchy, superintendent, principal, then teacher. There's no telling how many American kids are radicalized by shitty American kids who have nothing else better to do than mock and insult and bully their fellow peers. Sudbury schools value freedom and democracy. Sudbury schools value freedom and democracy. So does Summerhill. But general public schools, they do not value freedom and democracy. Thomas Crooks was the shooter. He's 20 years old, going to be 21 soon. He was bullied in high school, a loner who didn't make the rifle team because it was said he wasn't a good enough shot, which turned out to be correct. Thomas Crooks missed his big shot. So he's not a big shot. You're not a big shot if you miss your big shot. There was two iconic photos that came out of the melee. One was Donald Trump pumping his fist in the air, and actually it wasn't a black power fist. It was just kind of a half fist in the air, surrounded by Secret Service with the American flag above him and blood on his face. Another photo has the bullet that pierced Donald's ear flying just past Donald's head as Donald is wincing from the pain of getting shot in the ear. In Fight Club, Brad Pitt had asked, "Why'd you just hit me in the ear?" Thomas Matthew Crooks, his middle name is Matthew. He's from Bethel Park, Pennsylvania. He was a young American man, Caucasian, which is typical. The assassination attempt of former President Donald Trump happened on July 13th in Butler, Pennsylvania. He came from Bethel Park. This is a suburb south of Pittsburgh. Thomas Crooks drove 40 minutes to an hour by car away to get to the rally, which was being held in Butler. Thomas Crooks' father is Matthew Crooks. Matthew Crooks told CNN that he is still trying to understand what the hell is going on and would wait until I talked to law enforcement to speak about his son. So Clandis, I think, is wrong. Clandis is wrong. Not only did she presume he's liberal or Democrat, but she also thinks it's an inside job and just kind of insinuated a whole bunch of shit. Thomas Crooks had used an AR-15, apparently bought 11 years ago. Law enforcement officials believe the weapon used to shoot Donald Trump was purchased by Thomas Crooks' father, Matthew Crooks. That's according to the Associated Press. Speaking on the condition of anonymity, two officials told AP that Crooks' father had bought a weapon at least 6 months ago. Maybe it's the AR-15, probably something else. Bobby Jr. did eventually get Secret Service protection, which, you know, JFK was killed, Bobby Kennedy was killed, Fred Hampton was killed by the FBI, Chicago police while he was sleeping, Malcolm X, MLK were killed with the FBI stalking them, at the very least, nonstop. Leonard Peltier serving life in prison, 2 life sentences because of the FBI's bullshit, COINTELPRO bullshit. So this is the deep state, the CIA, the FBI. A search by Fox News Digital revealed that Thomas Crooks would have turned 21 years old this September. Thomas Crooks had no reported criminal or traffic citations and no reported bankruptcies, liens, or foreclosures. Squeaky clean. So he would have passed his background check. Anyways, Thomas Crooks would have passed the background check. This is white on white crime, Republican on Republican crime. Now, if you compare this to Ronald Reagan, if you compare it to Teddy Roosevelt, anytime you survive an assassination attempt, also Christina Kirchner of Argentina, When you survive an assassination attempt, you get an outpouring, rightfully so, you get an outpouring of the public sympathy. When Reagan had got shot, his shot was actually way worse. One of the bullets is going to strike Reagan in his side. It's going to break a rib, and then that rib is going to pierce his lung. Like half of the blood, half of Ronald Reagan's blood is going to be removed before the bleeding was brought under control. And then the surgeons are going to remove the bullet, which lodged just an inch from the president's heart. This was during Ronald Reagan's term. So he was actually in office 1981 after Ronald Reagan got shot. The assassination attempt actually propelled Reagan's popularity. His poll numbers went up, and then Reagan was able to push his agenda down everybody's throats. So if history is any indication, then it almost seems inevitable. Biden looked weak, old, demented, and Republican and Trump looks strong, not weak, heroic. So somebody, Hard Lens Media, had said, game over, the election's over, why even? Ronald Reagan had asked one of the doctors if he was a Republican, and the doctor had said, well, we're all Republicans now. We're all Republicans now, the doctor had told Ronald Reagan to reassure him that he would be a good doctor. Ronald Reagan had told his wife, honey, I forgot to duck. And then Ronald Reagan was able to shove his entire agenda down the throats of the American people. So people are mixed. Is this a false flag? Is this what is going on? A false flag to shoot so close to the head. Hey, just nick me in the ear and then I'll get the sympathy. It makes no sense. We know a lot of information about the guy. We haven't got a clear motive yet. So that's essentially everything that I know that had happened. John Hinckley, he had said that he was motivated by Jodie Foster. He said that actually he wanted to shoot Jimmy Carter. He wanted to impress Jodie Foster first by shooting Jimmy Carter. He had chickened out, and then later on tried to shoot and kill Ronald Reagan, which makes no sense because Jodie Foster isn't really that pretty. She's got a weird face. And Ronald Reagan was shot in the body, it broke a rib, it pierced his lung, so his shooting was worse. But I believe Hard Lens Media is correct. This very much seems like an open and shut case, almost like an open and shut election. Why even have the election at this point? My God. What we needed for the last 4 years is a bold progressive agenda. We needed change. We needed not to maintain the status quo. We needed change, but we've maintained the status quo. Oh, status quo. Joe Biden is a conservative. The genius of the Clinton presidency is that they turned the Democrats into conservatives, and then they turned the Republicans into batshit crazy Looney Tune psychos. So that's everything I know so far about July 13th, 2024.